Okay, here we go. I told you Paul wrote 13 of the 27 books in the New Testament. Now we're going to be talking about the book of Romans. It's an interesting book. Now, Rome was the capital of the Roman Empire. It was the premier city in the world at the time, just as you might think of New York City or Washington D.C. Washington D.C. as the premier city of the world today. Nero Claudius Caesar was the emperor when Paul wrote this letter, and Nero expelled all the Jewish community from Rome in AD 49. Now, at the death of Claudius, which was about the year 52 AD, there was a mass exodus of Jewish Christians who had returned to Rome, confronting this Gentile Jewish tension that now began to exist there in the area. This tension was something that brought about the need for some unity within the church, and that's part of what Paul wants to address. This is maybe his preliminary statement to Rome, because this is considered an ambassadorial letter that he wrote to them in preparation for his coming. This book is one of his hallmark writings because there's a special emphasis on the matters of sin and salvation. It's the first of Paul's epistles. It doesn't necessarily mean, again, it was the first one he wrote, but it was the largest of the epistles. And it's a letter to the Church of Rome. It's called by theologians oftentimes as the gospel in its purest form. Romans is a great book to study. Augustine, who is a very, very powerful and very respected theologian, he was converted after he read Romans 13 to 14, which says, because we belong to the day, we must live decent lives for all to see. Don't participate in the darkness of wild parties and drunkenness, or in sexual promiscuity and immoral living, or in quarreling and jealousy. Instead, clothe yourself with the presence of the Lord Jesus Christ, and don't let yourself think about ways to indulge your evil desire. Martin Luther, around the year 1500, expounded on this, and he grabbed the writings of Paul here in Romans, and that's where he started to embrace this principle of justification by faith, which became a key component in the differences between the Catholicism and the Protestant Reformation. Luther, as you may know, became the founding father of the Protestant Church. Now, as you read through Romans, I encourage you to break it down into 4 sections. And as always, instead of rushing through the book, I would say read one of these sections and pray. Maybe the next day read another section and pray, and so forth. So the first section would be chapter 1 through verse 10. That's Paul's, again, he follows this pattern. It's a salutation and thanksgiving. The next section would be verse 11 all the way through all of chapter 11, where he's talking about the righteousness of God. And then the next section will be chapter 12 all the way through to chapter 15, verse 13, where Paul's giving admonitions and exhortations. And finally, again, following the theme, the organized format of his writing, we have chapter 15, verse 14, through the end of the book, which are the closing greetings and summary. The righteousness of God is the overriding theme of the book of Romans, and the first 3 chapters impacted Martin Luther most, as I said. But Paul addresses the wrath of God as he argues that the main human sin is idolatry. Think about that. Idolatry, and that doesn't necessarily just mean some figure that you look at, but it could mean a person in your life. It could mean watching football or playing golf. It could mean money. It could mean your career. Anything we put ahead of God is idolatry. Regarding the debate on circumcision, Paul introduced an interesting principle here. He purported that an external circumcision was not the key. Rather, it's the key is the circumcision of the heart, the change of the heart. He also emphasized grace over works. But he teaches that adoption as a child of God does not protect us from suffering, but the Lord will carry us through to glorification. This, as we've heard it said, that we're taught that the rain falls on the just and the unjust. Paul teaches us that sanctification is a process. It's not an instant change. God bless you in this reading. I love the book of Romans, and I pray that you'll be blessed by it.